Welcome, everyone, to the Bradenton City Council special meeting on Wednesday, April 12th, 2023 at 5 p.m. at City Hall Council Chambers. We'll call the special meeting to order. Mr. Perry?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, members of the public, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to the special meeting. What we will be doing tonight is hearing from the proposers regarding the development proposals referencing City Hall property. We have 3 individuals that remain in the submissions from the original 5 that had submitted pursuant to our solicitation back in August of 2021. I don't want to go into great detail, and I think it's important to just allow the proposers to proceed. But I think the purpose of it's important to point out that the purpose of tonight's meeting is to ask for a motion to rank the proposers of the City Hall development proposals in numerical order. That'll be actually what the official request is at the end of the proposals, questions and answers, public comment, and the like. If we could go to the, it's up, thanks. I just want to take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about how we got to this point. As council and a lot of the members know in the audience as well, in 2022, the city had received 2 unsolicited offers to purchase the city center property. At that time, city administration staff presented an additional capital development plan to council, and we engaged in diligence. We began with doing things such as an appraisal for the property. We went outside of the city of Bradenton to people with Colliers International, well-experienced and credentialed property appraisers that came back with an appraisal. We also did a planning study to look at the space utilization of the city's needs, and we did that with local architects. We did a fiscal impact statement through Regional Economic Council for the overall fiscal impact of the development of mixed use on this property. After that, we basically got legal counsel and advice, referenced putting out a solicitation that was put on DemandStar, internationally advertised, and along with that, we provided approximately a 90-day period for submissions. We received 5 submissions at that time, August of 2021, and we are down to 3 remaining interested parties at this time. The important thing, as referenced by council and demanded, was public outreach. We had 15 community meetings with 200 attendees overall. We set up a website for written comments. We staffed 6 downtown Bradenton public market events. We presented to 6 community-wide professional organizations, and we conducted 2 council workshops itself. And so in launching the City Hall's community outreach webpage, we solicited comments to the public, and we received on that webpage approximately 251 unique citizen entries, meaning individual entries, not multiple entries and the like. There was 15 newspaper articles that we were able to identify, 6 television reports, and I believe it was somewhere on the order of 18,000 social media hits. And so we think that the administration, in vetting this project and posturing it appropriately for the benefit of council, our Board of Governance, has engaged in professional, thoughtful, and complete due diligence to get the project to this point. We have 2 groups tonight that will be submitting their proposals and elaborating with their presentations. We have L&L Development and Red Apple Group. We did receive a letter from Silver Hills Development that indicated they would not be attending and were not interested in supplementing their particular proposal. But we did include them as one of the 3 in tonight's ranking. And so we think we've done a pretty good job of trying to vet this project. Again, posture it where it's developed, vetted, and prepared for council to begin to evaluate the proposals, therefore ranked. Tonight is not going to be a vote to sell City Hall. It will be a ranking of the proposed developers. Council may remember that I have received previous support and authority to engage negotiations, which our conflict counsel, Ms. Arguella, can talk a little bit about the scope of what that allows us to do through what's called the negotiation strategies exception to the Open Meetings Act. Of course, when we go into negotiations, we would want to do that in private so that it doesn't compromise those types of negotiations, and that is permitted by state law. But I'll allow Ms. Arguella to explain that a little bit better. But with that, I'd refer it back to the chair, Mayor Brown, and
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
proceed accordingly.
Yes, first off, I'd just like to thank you, your administration, your staff, and all of the staff members that through the last several months have been at these meetings and did the due diligence and did a great job as far as setting things up and really trying to move this city into that next level and generation that we're going to do. And I'm just proud to be the elected leader of a great administration and staff and everyone that's been involved. So thank you for that. And what we're going to do tonight, obviously we're going next to the presentations. We're going to have both presentations do their presentation, and then we will ask questions of each group. So it may be a little bit coming back and forth, but I just thought it best to manage through that. So you each have an opportunity to present. You've already presented once, so it's more of just kind of an update and where we're at this point, and then we'll come back with questions. Then once the council has satisfied their questions, then we'll do citizen comment, and then we'll go from there with next steps. So at this time, I'd like to call L&L Development up to start their presentation. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Zaboral, and I am the President and Chief Executive Officer of L&L Development here in Florida. Wish to continue our conversation today that we began, I guess, several months ago, and talk about our project, the Villas, which we are here to talk about a bit tonight. But as I mentioned, I really envision this as being a continued conversation with you all and with the important stakeholders to meet ultimately on a project that's right for Bradenton. And one of the things that happens in this process is the proposers get up here and propose things, but we don't really get to have a great conversation about, really what are the needs and how do things really work. And so one of the things I would like to make clear is we've spent a lot of time on our proposal and we've continued to refine it, but we've done that in a vacuum. And so as we sit here tonight or stand here tonight and talk to you, I think it's really important that you know that what's important to us is to create a great, iconic project for Bradenton that brings a certain vibe and a certain iconic presence to what you've already started here. And that really doesn't happen by a simple proposal and an acceptance. That happens by work. And I'm sure there'll be many people along the way that need to weigh in on this. And so what excites us is this mix of uses. And so at the end of the day, L&L, we're professional developers. That's what we do. We don't do something else and then do some development on the side. We're developers. We've been developers I've been in the state of Florida for over 30 years. My partner, David Levinson, has been a developer in New York for 40 years. Our local partners here, who you'll hear from later, have been in this community for a number of years. This is what we do. Let me see how I page down here, sorry.
Lift up.
I might need some help here. Let's try that. Okay, so this is an aerial view of the proposal that we previously submitted. As you can see, one of the real big and interesting elements to this is that central courtyard for our for rent 350 unit apartment project. I think one of the things that I was told that I didn't do a really good job of last time was talking about our experience as developers. And so I want to take a minute. don't really love talking about myself, but what I'd like to do is just take a minute and tell you about who I am and what I've done. I have been a developer, like I mentioned, in Florida for 30 years. For the last 17 or so years, I've been developing a project in Orlando called Lake Nona. Lake Nona is a 15 square mile area next to the Orlando airport. When I came there in 2004, there was approximately 400 houses and a very high-end golf club. When I left 1 year ago today, we had approximately 6,000 houses, probably 10 million square feet of commercial activity, multiple hotels, apartment complexes, institutional presence. We had multiple schools. All of those things were facilitated during my leadership of that project. I've also built a number of mixed-use projects throughout Florida, including in Lakewood Ranch, right up the street in Sarasota, worked in Tampa, Fort Lauderdale. All Florida experience, a lot of mixed-use things, all for our own account. We've been long-term holders of real estate in Florida. A lot of folks are merchant builders. They build things, they sell them, they go on to the next project. I think for us, David and myself, partners in L&L, we wish to be long-term owners of the things that we create. David has spent his career in New York City, and he and I have formed L&L Development to focus on Florida, but to use our relative experience. David, working in New York City, has built over 10 million square feet of commercial office in Manhattan. 10 million square feet. So he actually started his business as a broker, and through the brokerage business became a developer and has done a number of iconic projects, including this one, 425 Park Avenue, which only opened about 6 months or so ago. And as I briefly said the last time that we are here, you say, well, opening office, everything you read is doom and gloom about office development. But I think our position as a developer is if we continue to build best in class, it will perform in downturns as well as in upturns. And so while we are leasing this 425 Park Avenue, and although leasing is a little bit slower than we pro forma'd, the rates have held up, and actually we're getting top of market rents in New York City right now. And so our thought and our strategic advantage or our secret sauce is really to build best in class projects and to utilize those to showcase really what we can do and to prevent us from economic impacts associated with downturns, et cetera. So we're excited about this project here because it is iconic. It's an iconic piece of property. It's our opportunity to do something very meaningful in Bradenton. And quite honestly, it's the best piece of property around. That's what we wish to be involved in. I don't know why this thing keeps locking up on me. Okay. I have a full presentation here on details on our project, which you'll have, but I want to just highlight a couple of things. As I mentioned, this one thing that's critical here is this mix of uses. We have retail, which would include a lot of restaurants, including what we've now planned for a rooftop venue. But we have retail and restaurants. We have multifamily apartments for rent and a number of different sizes, which would cater to a number of different incomes and demographics. We have condominiums for sale. Our newest proposal looked at reducing the height of our condominium tower from 20 stories to 17 stories. I don't know if 17 stories is magic or 20 stories is magic, but we did that to show that we can be flexible. That 17-story building has 80 condominium units. Again, I think at the end of the day, when we get to a formal plan, we can hone some of these numbers, but we have 80 condominium units in our newest plan. And last but not least is the hotel. So I mentioned last time, and our hotel partner would talk a little bit about this, but I mentioned last time that we had a commitment from Marriott on a Marriott AC hotel here. We intend to continue to move forward with that. One of the things that I think is interesting about the hotel is it really becomes the living room, for this project. Obviously, a hotel is open to the public. Matter of fact, we want the public to come to our restaurants. This hotel has a ballroom of 10,000 square feet. It has 8,000 square feet that support that ballroom. So we really think this is a great opportunity for weddings and meetings and all of these things that help drive other businesses in downtown Bradenton, not just captured within what it is that we're offering. So we have this ballroom, we have this public space. The hotel really becomes the living room for this project. I mentioned that this courtyard, the courtyard for the apartment project is very large, and I think will be a really cool amenity. I built a project very similar to this in Orlando called the Landon House, and it is getting amazing premiums. This courtyard will be very special. We have, of course, the traditional pools and terraces and these kind of things that are associated with this development. Here's a cross-section. I think I mentioned before, we looked at a revision of the hotel height down to 17 floors. We have the hotel remaining at 14 floors, and then we have the apartment at 8 floors. Again, all of these things can be discussed and can be modified as we work through, final plans. But those, cross sections and those floor heights are what have given rise to the program, as I described. This was a image of our first proposal, and again, we proposed it. We thought that bringing something modern to Bradenton could be interesting. I think some of the feedback we got from the public and from some of you all was it's too modern. And I don't really know that I want to, focus on that. I don't want to defend it because we're happy to do, again, what fits for Bradenton. In our last submittal, we offered a couple of options. They weren't really options for you to say, oh, I want this one or I want that one. I think the purpose of the options was just to say, given that mass and given that sort of program, can we do different things? And, I think we've shown here we have 4 different things that we can do with that, but there's millions of different things that we can do with this. I think what the key really is that you pick a team that you feel you can work with that can deliver ultimately what's best for your city. Our team includes a world-class architectural firm called Architectonica. Sherry is here with them. I mean, they've done all sorts of projects around the world with all kinds of different looks. These are some of the built projects that they've done. And really, their job is to help us all come together and come up with a project that's right for this community and right for us. But at the end of the day, in my mind, what really matters is what's the vibe and what's the street scene of this place that we're creating. This is what people are going to feel when they walk down the street. They're going to feel those cafes. They're going to be enchanted by that energy that's coming from here. And I think when we looked back at our proposal and we proposed some new additions, I think one of the things that we started focusing on, which might be obvious to you all, but so apologies if it is, but really is what's that Riverwalk presence? And how are we connecting to that? How are we enhancing that public space? What are we doing with that great manatee statue? How are we celebrating that sort of area, and how do we plug into that? So I think we started spending some time about thinking about enhancing that public space. And whether it's landscape, lighting, signage enhancements, benches, all of those things I think are what is going to be a significant public element of this project. And so, although we've just sort of begun that, I think we've started to turn our attention to really focusing on that. Yes, we have all their public spaces in this project. We have a connection through the project, and we have a pedestrian walkway behind the project by the parking garage. So we have those things, but I think this is really the public presence of this project, on a very prominent street here downtown. And I think for us, we would like to focus more improvements on this area. And so I think at the end of the day, we hope that you would look at us as people that can bring solutions and work with you towards this vision that still hasn't been fully baked. I think we're interested in mix of uses. We're interested in the vibe and the energy that creates. We're interested in doing something transformational for Bradenton that will be here for years to come. We're interested in being long-term owners in your community and operating a first-class project. And that's what we hope, gets us in the door to start these conversations. So thank you all for your time. I understand we're going to have some time in a bit to answer more questions. We haven't significantly modified our proposal over time. This is the proposal that we came in December. I think we've tweaked things here or there to try to be responsive. And I guess I'd say last but not least, I know money always matters. I think in the grand scheme of everything that this project is and all of that, I don't want to be lost simply on what's the purchase price of the land. But I will say this, which is we propose something. We're prepared to match whatever proposal you think is best for the city. I think there's a lot of factors that go into this. When is it turned over? When does the closing actually happen? What are the conditions of closing? What is the approval state at the time of closing? So there's a lot of factors that come in there. I don't want you to worry that, about the money. I think for us, we're happy to match whatever money is out there that's needed to get this project done. And the grand scheme of things, this will be, a multi-million-dollar project, which we intend to build all as one phase. So, the land is important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that we have a common vision and that we're able to create this truly iconic project. So,
Thank you.
Thank you all. With that, I would like our hotel partner, David, to come up here for a moment.
Good afternoon, members of council, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Perry. My name is David Kako. I'm the owner, president, and CEO of North Star Lodging Management and North Star Lodging Development. As we talked about specializing in development, I specialize specifically in hotels, Marriott hotels. In fact, we developed and operate the Spring Hill Suites right next to the building. I've been in the business for 25 years. Over the years, we've managed and developed over 25 hotels, mainly Marriott properties. In 2014, I believe it was, we were recognized as being Marriott's premier developer and operator. We received the Partnership Circle Award, which is Marriott's premier award for hotel development and operations. I'm here today to tell you that we're excited to be partners with Jim and L&L and Ron. We're excited to take the hotel in downtown Bradenton to the next level. We've had great success with the Spring Hill Suites brand. In fact, we pioneered the Spring Hill Suites high-rise in 2005 in Pittsburgh, next to our beloved Pittsburgh Pirates Stadium, PNC Park. We were the first developer to take the Spring Hill brand, which was typically a 3 or 4 story brand, kind of prototypical hotel, go 198 rooms, 10 stories in the air, et cetera. Now you can't go to a major city without seeing a unique Spring Hill like you folks have here. Excuse me. Our hope is to bring something called an AC hotel by Marriott to Bradenton. We have already been pre-approved by Marriott, as Jim mentioned earlier. We have a letter from Marriott saying that they are approving us to move forward with an AC hotel by Marriott. I'll talk about what an AC hotel is briefly. An AC hotel is a European hotel. It was a small chain that was, I believe it started in Spain, in Europe. And Marriott loved what this group was doing. So Marriott approached them and said, we want to buy you. We want to take the AC brand to the United States, and we want to put it in dense urban areas. And we wanted this to be our urban European hotel. So they're very selective with where they allow franchisees, developers like us, to put these hotels. And we're honored that we have been given the green light to work with them to provide the city of Bradenton with an AC hotel. The AC hotel, as we talked about earlier, as Jim mentioned, will have a rooftop element. Our rooftop at the Spring Hill Suites has done so great, right? I mean, I think it's really proven itself. Back in 2017, when we were working with the folks at the city, we worked with you guys. You guys gave us some credits, some tax credits, because we needed it. We were pioneering this area. We weren't sure what we were getting into. We've proven now. We've been open now for a little over, almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in May. We got through COVID. We didn't close. We kept our people employed. And we plan on doing the same here with the AC Hotel. It's a lifestyle hotel. The AC recently came out with something called the AC Leisure. There's a new buzzword in the hotel industry called bleisure, which is a mix of business and leisure travelers. The AC Leisure really goes after that. And we know who stays at our Spring Hill, right? And we know it's that mix of business and leisure. So we incorporate elements like restaurants, ballrooms, special service, really unique design. And the AC Hotel takes the level of the Spring Hill Suites level, which is a great level, and we've customized it and made it very special here. We take it up a notch with the AC. So we're really happy to be able to bring this brand as part of this development to the city of Bradenton. That's all I have. I think I'll turn it over to Ron Allen.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ron Allen. I'm president of NDC Construction Company, NDC Development Company, and I'm a Bradenton resident and have been had my corporate offices in Bradenton for over 35 years. I'm really excited about this venture we're getting into. I'd like to first talk about the hotel for a second because I think it's really important for people to understand. When we came to you and talked about the hotel, the Spring Hill Suites, it was pioneering at the time to put a rooftop restaurant. So the city saw that vision and allowed us incentives that allowed us to get into that area and build the hotel. We've seen now that it was the right decision for both us as developers and for you as the city in making that decision to do that. The interesting part about it is, while some people may claim that those incentives are strong for that hotel, but what it's done now, it's piggyback where now we're proposing a second hotel. But guess what? We're not asking for any incentives, none. So when you look at it, you now have cut your incentives in half for the product that you end up having in our community. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out in this. The second is, you know, most of you who know me understand I live, breathe, and bleed city of Bradenton. I have my entire career. I have my corporate office here. I live in the city of Bradenton, and I love the city of Bradenton. One of the important things that most communities, when they go through charrettes and they go through plans, is the most important thing for a community to develop its downtown is heads and beds. It's bringing people to live downtown. We've been fortunate enough that we've covered the gamut. We've built multifamily units on 14th Street within the 14th CRA. We've built Bradenton Village, which is on the eastern portion of the city. We are getting ready to, which is hard to believe that we built Bradenton Village 21 years ago this year. We're getting ready to, and we've applied to do what's called a HUD-RAD, which is a redevelopment of that project, meaning we're going to go in and redo roofs and windows and kitchens and bathrooms. So that's another component of our multifamily that's all within this central core of our downtown. We are also embarking on the final phase of Bradenton Village, which is consistent of we are proposing single-family, first-time home buyer for sale product in the final phase of Bradenton Village. Another sort of check mark of how we get those residents across the board in downtown Bradenton. As you know, you can see as you come in every day, we have a 137-unit workforce housing project under construction right now in the heart of our downtown. You won't find many workforce housing projects that can be this centralized into what we consider our entertainment and retail area downtown. We're so excited about that opportunity. We've developed and built close to 800 units on the river, one in downtown behind the Manatee Performing Arts Center. 600 units in what we call historical Old Bradenton, east of our current downtown, which now the Riverwalk has connected it all. So my point is, this is sort of the next gem for our community. We want to bring those people that want to live here. But we want to bring it in a different way. We want to bring it in for the rental community. We want to bring it for those who want to purchase condominiums. And most importantly, one of the things that's important to our project is not only do we want to create an economic boom for downtown with those units, we want to have our folks that are buying and renting these places disperse into the streets and use those retail components, use the Bishop Museum, use all those kind of things in downtown, which is very walkable. And I appreciate the city's foresight in putting all those walkable components into our city. But now we also are proposing the hotel, which again brings public into our project, as opposed to just us developing so that our folks have someplace to go. We want to bring the public in. So between the hotel, the rooftop, the banquet facility, that brings the public into it. We also want to create, we have if you saw through the plan, we have a center cut that comes through our project to connect Main Street and 10th Street, which is the Bishop, in the middle, the midpoint of that, or roughly in the midpoint, which means that you don't have to walk 17 blocks to get from the Bishop if you're on Main Street. And we think that's an important component, and we're going to make that a very viable area of landscaping, walkways, and make it very nice coming through there. Now we're running our retail around the corners of the project, which again gives us more opportunities for restaurants and retail, but it also allows the public, again, into our project. Then coming, as Jim described, from Riverwalk, we want to bring Riverwalk into our project. And we think the appropriate place is coming through where the big tree is. But not just coming to the big tree, but we want to bring the big tree and come all the way through to that connectivity for the whole project. And then finally, we want to create that lawn that's on the most northern part of our property that is really the ability for people to not notice that Riverwalk stops coming south. It's part of our project, but it's a public access coming towards the retail components within our project. And so that's what really excites me. You know, I have 80 plus employees that are a block away from this. And when we talk about these things, they get excited because this is the opportunities they have to continue to walk, talk, and be in downtown. And our hope is that other than the hotel, because that will be a coming and going, we hope all the other residents spend their time walking around downtown, not driving. So we're hoping that that process doesn't enhance or hurt our traffic situation, because as you know from your studies, most of our traffic issues are from through traffic. We're trying to get that through traffic to stay in downtown and not create any additional problem. And we think with those features, those are the kind of things that we are going to be able to provide for the operations of this project. And I am so excited with the thought of sitting down, and I will tell you personally, it's been frustrating because we've presented to you, we've heard what you've talked about, we've gone out to your neighborhood meetings and attended those and listened to what the public said, but it's really hard as, you know, we have a world-class designer, but that world-class designer is challenged because they want you to think out of the box. Now, whether that's right or wrong isn't the answer. We want to start thinking out of the box and then figure out, as sitting with everybody and deciding what that is it looks like. And right now we haven't had that opportunity, so we keep presenting plans from what we hear, but there's no collaboration. And that's really what we as a team, you know, the L&L group, NDC, the architect, we're all in that same boat where we want to sit down and get everybody talking about it as opposed to being talked at or us talking to them. And that's really where we are tonight. So we would hope that if you are interested in seeing what can be the best possible thing for downtown, that you would select L&L Development, and we can really sit down and start working on what that initial look looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. So L&L, you're finished? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll call up Red Apple Group. Welcome, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Kevin King, Red Apple Group. Thank you, Manager Perry. I guess he just walked out. Real nice of him. Mayor, council, city staff, residents. A couple months ago, you heard from one of our vice presidents, Bob Zorn. He could not make it today and sends his regrets. Like Bob, I am also a Tampa Bay resident. I have with me another area resident, our architect, Tim Clemens from Place Architecture. And I think, as you all know, the Red Apple Group is based out of New York City, but our presence here in the region has afforded us quite a bit of familiarity with this site and your community, our community. So, as you also know, we are building an iconic tower just north of here in St. Petersburg. It will be the tallest residential building on the west coast of Florida, and it is not what we want to build here. On this site, we want to build Bradenton. And I think we've demonstrated that to date. We did not show up here several months ago with what we thought was the answer to your request. We showed up with an answer and a promise to listen and learn. We did not show up with a fancy rendering, as you may remember, because we believe the design of this building should be informed by additional conversation with the community, and we look forward to those discussions. Tamara, could you pull up just the first page of the packet we sent?
I apologize.
No worries, thank you. Perfect, and y'all can see that on the screen. Thank you so much. So just wanted to cover a couple high-level points about our project. Red Apple Group will complement and integrate into downtown Bradenton this project with substantial ground floor retail that also provides homes for both sale and rent. Last time we were here, we had, I believe, just rental units. We've added quite a bit of condo units at 95. Also a name that reflects Bradenton's geography and highlights the beautiful oak tree. So we were planning to call this the River Oak Apartments, River Oak Condominium Residences, and the shops at River Oak. And you'll see a picture there of your oak tree. And that's actually a picture of me right after I got married in Longboat Key 13 years ago, walking to the old Madisons on the marina, Pier 22. The oak tree lasted longer than my marriage. And I am here to...
All of our marriages.
All of the marriages.
Hundreds of years old.
But the good news is, I am here to tell you that we are going to ensure it lasts a lot longer for generations to come. We love the oak tree, and I actually the other day called my ex-wife and said, I'm going to use this picture in the slide. And she said, make sure they're saving the oak tree. And I said, yes, we're going to do that. So this area means a lot to me personally. And it's kind of neat just to be here in front of y'all. Again, our purchase price, $12,750,000, plus adequate time for the city of Bradenton to continue to occupy the existing facility at no cost to taxpayers. A smart mix of 95 condos, between 350 to 450 rental units, approximately 30,000 square feet of retail, residential parking, and public parking spaces for the shops and nearby destinations. John Katzimatidis, our president and CEO, will be an area resident. He is passionate about Tampa Bay and the local communities. He has a track record of success and is committed to developing a project that both Bradenton and the Red Apple Group will be proud of. John's a guy who doesn't buy and flip things. He has developed a handful of projects, not dozens, not hundreds. He's passionate about this. It's a hobby of his. And yes, it is a part of other things that he does, but he does them one at a time. And he invests in them personally and with passion. That's why he'll be living right across the Sunshine Skyway at the residence at 400. John closes with a quote. He's confident he can do for Bradenton what we're doing in St. Petersburg. and develop a centerpiece of your downtown, but most importantly, serves to complement the existing assets and charm of Bradenton. We're not going to drop a spaceship into the middle of Bradenton. We want something that looks like Bradenton, that feels like Bradenton, but also takes you to the next level. And so Tim Clemens is going to go over that, and then we're happy to take any of your questions. Thank you so much. I think you just plug in.
Tamara, can you flip me over? Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is, as Kevin said, Tim Clemens. I'm with Place Architecture in St. Petersburg. And when I started my practice 30 years ago, I wanted to focus on urban mixed use and urban residential projects, which at the time seemed like kind of a stretch in the Tampa Bay area to be wanting to do those kind of projects. And it's better to be lucky than good. I mean, it's just the timing was right for the types of projects that I was really passionate about started to become really the types of things that the whole, we've seen throughout the whole area, the whole region. And so we've and have, like I said, have been fortunate enough to focus on the types of, doing the types of projects that we're talking about tonight. I started my first actually urban project was next week will be 26 years ago that I moved into downtown St. Petersburg in a 4-unit townhouse project. That was the first residential project built in downtown St. Pete in 20 years. It was me and 3 friends bought a lot, and the city didn't even have the zoning to allow for it. And but we went to the mayor, and he helped us figure it out. And actually, one of my good friend 2 doors down just sold his unit last week. Otherwise, all of us are original owners for 26 years and are still there. But we've done armature works in Tampa. Maybe some of you have seen, and we actually range from. I say we do urban residential, but it ranging from low-income projects such as the Addison here in the east end of downtown Bradenton, to luxury condominiums. We've got a couple of high-rises on the downtown waterfront in St. Petersburg that we're pleased to have been involved with. For Bradenton, this is an incredible site. It's 4 acres, just under 4 acres, with a beautiful waterfront frontage, the Main Street to the west, 10th Street, which has some really important institutions here, the Bishop, the Hampton Inn Suites on the east side. And what was important to us is to make sure that we respected all of the boundaries and all of the active edges of the site. So there is no back street here because of the orientation of the geography of the site. And we don't have, as Kevin said, we're not really coming into you with a finished design, but it's an approach and a concept to put before you. And as you've heard, and actually I think the L&L did a really nice job of describing that this really is an interactive process. And we're always at a little bit of a disadvantage when we're at this stage because we're anticipating based on our understanding of the community, looking at the form-based code that you have, looking at what's been happening for the last several years in Bradenton. So, but we also do bring in what we consider good, strong urban design principles that are really timeless and that do translate from place to place. So we're really wrapping if you look at the diagram here, we're really wrapping retail on all 3 sides of the project. We're trying to activate both 10th and 12th Main Street and First Avenue to the north. We're respecting, as Kevin mentioned, the oak tree, and we're really making it a pride of place by making a pedestrian-oriented plaza with restaurants flanking both sides of it, we're envisioning. And because it is such a large block, we're also envisioning a pedestrian walk through the south end of the property between the municipal garage and the project. So it's a 4th front, a 4th street, if you will, a pedestrian muse through the middle of the block.
On the upper floors, again, we've wrapped and hidden the parking garage. We want it to be convenient to all parts of the project. So we've got good accessible and adequate parking for all of the needs. There's about 140 parking spaces on the ground level that will serve the retail spaces, but also be available for other public parking for the district. And then above on the second, third, and fourth floor, the parking is for the 95 condominiums and then for the rental apartments. And we also too have a central courtyard that is for the benefit of the residents of the apartment building. And these are just really the beginning massing images to sort of show the scale of what we're proposing and the beginning of the character of it. So we have, what we have on the northwest corner is a 16-story, 95-unit condominium building. It kind of wraps the corner as an L-shaped, which takes advantage of the incredible views both north and west, and has a strong street presence with a colonnade and arcade along First Avenue and along Main Street, with continuous retail only interrupted by the lobby of the condominiums themselves on the west side of the building. And then the apartment building, we're showing it here as 8 stories. We propose that, and that works for us from a pro forma point of view, but if there was an appetite by the city for even a larger project, we'd be happy to look at going to 9 or 10 stories and taking it from 340 units to 440 units. And these images just sort of take you around the block. Again, you can see here the apartment building as it faces onto the river. And one of the things we wanted to do is use the variety, the different buildings to sort of break up the massing and give it a more organic feel of a project that had developed over time. And so again, but you see the colonnade on the on First Avenue with the retail, continuous retail, but then the retail turns and extends down 10th as well. And these are just sort of the other views from the north side and then the west side. And again, you can see the break between the condominium building and the apartment buildings. And again, in looking at your form-based code, we see that there's 4 approved architectural styles. And what we've been looking at for inspiration and looking at the city and looking at City Hall, the Pier, the Hampton Inns, the Pink Palace suites. It's no longer pink, but I remember when it was called the Pink Palace. And so these are some of the inspirational images. These are all projects that have looked back to Mediterranean revival, but they're all within the past 10 years, except of course for the Hampton Inn suites, which is, or these last 2, which are more historic buildings. But all of these are examples of the kind of architecture that we think, could begin as an inspiration point for our project. And that's really our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute recess just to use the restroom and do anything we have to do. Then we'll come back with questions and answers, or the opportunity for the council. Before we go to citizen comment, we'll be recessed for 5 minutes. Where did Josh go?
I don't know where Josh went. There he is.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to order. At this time, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to start in reverse order. We normally start a lot of things at 1 in the council, but I'm going to start at 5, and just to check Ward 5 to see if there's any specific questions, or you want to wait at the time? Okay. 4?
Wait, because they're going to come.
No, what we'll do is if you had any specific questions before we get to citizen comment, or if you just want to kind of let the citizen comment come up, then we'll have another opportunity for the council to talk before we go into the,
I have several questions, so just in the.
for an individual contractor, or?
It's really going to be for both.
Okay, so if you want to ask it now, might be the time, so the citizens can hear it? Okay,
sure.
go ahead, sure.
So again, it's really for both. My questions, I would appreciate if either one of you would like to address them. The first one is, well, to get started, I guess generally, I would like to thank you both because it looks like you have taken my comments that I passed on to staff and worked to endeavor to incorporate them into your updated proposals. To get started, I would say, in no particular order really, since you have addressed many of my talking points, as far as confirming delivery, how willing are you to entertain tenant approval contingencies to close or some kind of reverter in the event the project is not performing and it's looking like there's vacancies or some other unwanted, failure of the project, for lack of a better phrase? And would you entertain delay penalties in your ultimate construction and development contract?
Okay, L&L, did you want to kind of? Yes, yeah. Right, approach and just state your name again.
Jim Zaboral here again, L&L, President, CEO. So I ran a master plan community called Lake Nona, 17 years. We had a number of remedies, such as reverters, penalty clauses, all of those things for developers and builders within our project. So I'm quite familiar with those kind of things. I think I'm totally open to all of those. I think, for things that we can control.
Sure.
We have always issues of rogue tenants or COVID material delays or, like stuff like that. But like for us, we want to stand behind this project. We want to put a reasonable schedule there and we want to outperform your expectations. And so you're going to need some guardrails. We understand that.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Thank you for the question. I would say yes to all. Performance bond, insured delivery, completely open-minded to time frame. Understand you have to continue operations. We put 24 months in the document. That's flexible. We are receptive to what's best for council and the citizens. So,
Great.
Thank you.
While you're standing up there.
Yep, just stay up
to
first.
aid.
Yep.
Could you tell me a little bit about the market research that you did to get to a comfort level with what you've proposed and how likely it is for success?
Yes, well, really, we've leaned a lot on what we're doing right across the bridge, not far from here. And so we've, learned a lot. New York is, there's Bob Zorn who spoke before you, and my boss is probably best to answer that. But we're building about 25 minutes from here. And so a lot of that is informing what we're doing here as well. Of course, we've leaned on your studies as well. But we have so much confidence and faith in Bradenton. We see what's happening in St. Pete and Tampa, and clearly you've seen our affinity for the area. But it's backed up by data, and that's why in St. Pete we have 60,000 square feet of retail, a lot of office space as well there, which we're not doing here. It's why we've added the condos. We're very confident we can sell 95 condos.
Specifically, I think my concern for the benefit of the other council is that some of the residences would be seasonal and therefore vacant for some amount of time, which would then make it difficult for you to get the tenants on the retail side.
Sure.
And so that's my targeted focus and concern.
I think that's a challenge for every developer, is we want people to live in Bradenton full-time or live in St. Pete full-time and be full-time contributors to the community and bring spending power to downtown. So we share that goal. You don't want to look at a brand new condo building and see dark windows every night. And so, you work to mitigate that as best you can. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'd like to break it down sort of in a couple different patterns. One is the condo portion. We're talking about anywhere from 95 to 80, somewhere in that range of condos. As a resident here for 38 years now, one thing that we've continued to harp on is we believe that there is a condo market out there. Bradenton, unfortunately, to this point, has been one of the few communities that there isn't a lot of history on condos, like you have in St. Peter, you have in Tampa, or you have even in Sarasota. And we believe that that means that you bring all those things to bear in downtown, and the opportunities and things you can do in downtown is going to make that sale easy. But for me to sit here and say to you, we have market research that said 80 or 100 units of condos in Bradenton, there's no history, because the last condos in downtown were built in 08, 09, 07. But we believe there's a market. If you go to the rental side of the equation, those are the folks that are, as you describe, are going to be there every day. They're going to be the predominant group that's going to add to that retail component, add to that Main Street, add to the trips to the Bishop. The hotel is extraordinary for that fact. If you understand the hotel, every single person that shows up and stays in that hotel is going to be using Main Street services for restaurants, and we hope there's more retail and those kind of things. We can only base our market study on hotel by how well our hotel's doing next door. We have some of the highest occupancies per year in that hotel from the entire state of Florida. And if you look at the Oak and Stone side of the equation, try to go to Oak and Stone at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night and see how long it takes you to get upstairs. That's the market studies that we've used for a lot of these things to know that if you build it, they will come. They'll be there. The condo, as you described, I don't know how you can get into a situation where condos define whether they're full-time or they're part-time. But I will tell you, there's a large sector of Manatee County folks that would move into a condo downtown if there was one. I think there's, in Riverdance, which is the closest one to this facility, I think there's only, two units for sale right now out of 120 or 115 units. So we believe that a lot of those folks are not part-time people. They're people that are still living in a house in Bradenton. They don't want to leave Bradenton, but they don't have another option yet. So I think that will help solve your issue of how many are vacant for part-times of the year, just because we don't have a predominant amount of condos, but we have a lot of people that I think are in that mid-age category that are ready to be done with a house, but aren't ready to leave Bradenton. So I don't know if that answers your market research, but that's pretty much how we've looked at this across the board. Thank you.
Building height is going to be a huge one. Should we?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Do you have-
It's my opinion that we've made some representations regarding advocating for lower building heights, based on our meetings and our materials that we've sent out. So I like the red apple comment that you made about it looking like it evolved over time because it has varying heights. How much are you willing to commit to something in the nature of 14 stories? I'll just start there.
Well, it'd be L and L's turn first, because we're kind of rotating. We'll rotate, so L and L.
Keeping in mind that I like the idea that it's not uniform across the property. I mean, I think that added an aesthetic that was appealing.
Yeah, I think from L&L's standpoint, we talk about height, and height is a little bit deceiving because, and again, not to be argumentative, but if you're standing on the street corner or you're standing on top of the Green Bridge, I beg you to determine whether a building is 14 stories or 16 stories in height. That's where the problem comes in, is we're defining without sitting down and talking about, is it better to have 80 units and be 16 stories, or do we want 60 units or 40 units and be 10 stories tall? I think we're flexible from that standpoint, but there has to be some economic discussion about that, because now you're lowering the ability for the project to be successful, which is what the whole purpose of this is to try to find that common area. And what we would like to do is be able to sit with you, go through with our architect, defining what do those differences really look like in the scheme of things in the overall to come up with a number? I'd hate to sit here and commit to 20 stories, 15 stories, 14 stories until we sit down as a group and really talk that through to get to a conclusion of what is the best for the project, what is best for the community, and what is best for those community people that are going to be living within that condominium structure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, we're completely flexible on the height. The way we've looked at it right now is there's, on a standard floor, there's 7 condominiums per floor. They range from about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, so we've talked about them being not too big, not too small. And we've actually intentionally made them not too big because Bradenton is not quite as yet a proven condominium market, but that also maybe goes back to your point about full-time residents. What we find is that the larger and more expensive the condominiums are, the more likely it is to be a second or third home for someone who's a seasonal resident. So we are kind of sizing them to be more what we consider homes for residents of Bradenton, but there'll be some seasonal, there's no question about it. But back to the height is, you know, if we just dropped 2 floors and didn't change the footprint of the building, that would take us down to about 80 units. That works for us, but we might look instead, and you know, with the oak tree kind of where it is, and again, our initial thought was that the condominium building, by being the, you know, sort of the driver of the being more price sensitive than apartments for views, that's why we put it at the northwest corner, is what we might do is drop down a couple floors, but then pull another unit onto the west side of the property. We can't go further on First Avenue because the oak tree, but what we can do is maybe put an 8th unit per floor and keep our 95 unit count. But so, you know, we can, and that's easy then to sort of push over the apartment building and make up for that unit. So it's easy for us to sort of look at that, either, you know, like I said, either drop 14 units from this plan, or perhaps, like I said, just go to 8 per floor instead of 7 per floor and drop it down a couple floors.
Okay, thank you.
Very,
I'm going to let other council people, and then
sure,
we'll
yeah,
come back. So,
absolutely.
Mr. Kramer, did you have anything?
Just a few.
One thing, it's Zabil, right? Zaboral, my apologies. One thing you said is what needs to be done needs to be right for Bradenton. And I think you've got 85 to 100 people in this audience that are going to all have their own opinion of what's right for Bradenton. I know that's one thing that we talked about. The prior presentation is something that fits better, and I appreciate you coming back with the different proposals that shows your flexibility. One question I do have for Red Apple specifically is when we were about to set the date for this meeting, we got word that you all were ready to step out, and then really you've come back, I think, a strong rebound to that with a strong commitment. Can you come up and just, again, reinforce what your sort of decommitment was going to be and how it transitioned to where you are now?
I appreciate that question, and I know I think Bob Zorn spoke with Administrator Perry about this. Really, you know, I think there was an inclination at first that maybe because we weren't doing the hotel piece, that wasn't what the city was looking for. And I think just a reconsideration is let's come back with something more dynamic, even if it doesn't have the hotel, that has more retail and more condo and more multifamily. As it relates to the hotel, I would just, you know, it's really a question for council and the citizens is how much do you want to fit on this site? Do you want tourists at the hotel, multifamily residents, and condo owners on the 4 acres? Quite possibly. We're not completely closed-minded to the hotel, but I think as of right now, it's not in our plans, but we're receptive to having that conversation still.
Thank you.
And we're happy to be back, and thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barnaby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think both groups have impressed
upon me their ability to be flexible, their ability to listen, and their commitment to do what they believe we as the council, as the representatives of the citizens, want to see. And I appreciate that very much. When we have the height conversation, I started looking at I did a little bit of research, started looking at a few things, and what I found, the latest statistics was from 2019, that over 1,600 people were moving to Florida every day. And when I checked with Manatee County, they say that there's 1,000 people moving into Manatee County every month. And so when you talk about height, it really has to do with a balancing act. If you don't have height, you're going to have rooftops from here to Arcadia, solid. So if in an urban core you have the opportunity to do something with height, I think that's a prudent thing to consider. I don't personally know right now where I come down on where it would be. But again, both groups have impressed me with their ability to be flexible and their ability to listen, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Ms. Coker?
Thank you. I too, I think I'm very impressed with both of the submittals. I think we will be in good hands, and appreciate the flexibility, and I do think that you seem to sincerely want to work with us and make it what's best for Bradenton, because that's what it's going to all be about. With regard to L&L, I tell you, you really best in class. I can't tell you how much I want to hear that. Bradenton's always been the redheaded stepchild around here.
Hey. That's twice in the same day.
Case in point. No. Go play with your mouth. Anyhow, and so that's what I would like to see is best in class, because I think we deserve it as a realtor. I think if there were some good condos down here, I could sell them. And now you're talking about prime riverfront property. I think it'll go great. I think that we may not have a proven condo market, but I feel like if it is there are buyers that will buy it. So I'm happy to see that. A couple of things for both of them. I don't ever want to assume, are these concrete block construction? You know, that's my thing.
The answer is by default, the sizing of the projects are concrete.
Okay.
I don't know yet whether they're block poured in place. Oh, there's a lot of that.
I just don't want stick
But
built.
it's not, I can guarantee you they will not be stick built.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to go to that, say yes because of the height? All right, yeah. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Got it.
Thank you. And then last thing, with regard to the height, I am kind of piggybacking on her. I think that it's so much more environmentally better to go up rather than spread out. And density, and when we did our Downtown by Design study, it was all about increasing the density down here. And so I don't want to be afraid to get a little bit taller. I think, as Mr. Allen said, you know, when you're at street level, and I think we can take a little bit of height. I really do, and I hope that, I mean, we don't want anything we're not Sarasota, we're not Miami, but I think that a little bit of height would be good for us, and to increase the densities and get us a better product downtown. So.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Moore.
I love the idea of tying into the Riverwalk. I have a couple of things. The first one is I appreciate the courtyard design, but I don't love it. To me, if you flank the green space with buildings, it will just automatically give the public a perception that it's private space and that they're not welcome into it. My vision is that we have very generous setbacks. I would prefer we didn't build to the curb, and that those sidewalks, that there's green space all the benches and the bicycle racks for people watching and public engagement, but then also have ample sidewalk width for the street cafe and that sort of thing. So for me, that is a very important ask. I like the pedestrian walkway in the back, but I think that we would be really shooting ourselves in the foot if we were short-sighted and didn't really provide for that to be part of the extension of the Riverwalk then through Old Main. In addition to that, and this is not the same issue, but it has to do with building on these older roads. I think it was L&L that mentioned that they're going to tie into existing city services, and we'll just see how much that costs. But I think it's something that we should really address head-on, because what you'd be tying into, I don't think, in my limited understanding of Public Works, doesn't exist yet. So it's unreasonable for us to think that there's not going to be a related city expense to now increasing our density and having, something completely different at this site. And so when I say, are you going to be paying for, defraying some of that cost, all of that cost, where's the line there, and how much of that are you willing to take on?
Let's go with Red Apple first. But I do know that when we redid Main Street, obviously earlier on I was on the council, and Main Street was completely redone, I believe, from a standpoint of better infrastructure. And I'm looking back at our old city clerk and treasurer back there, and I think I'm right on that Main Street does have newer infrastructure, so, I believe.
I don't think we should assume.
Yeah. No, I'm getting, what I remember is, yes. So, yeah, so. But again, there may be some, ancillary cost that I think some of it is government required if you're doing things, but also working with the developer, especially since we are not giving any incentives.
Right.
That's a huge thing, and it is going to increase the income to the city as the project is finished, so. Go
Well,
ahead.
and there will be standard impact fees for,
Right.
applied to the project for transportation improvements. And, but the, the two biggest ones that we always look at is stormwater and then sanitary. Water matters too. We find that usually in the urban settings that's not, it's more rare that that's a limitation or an issue. Stormwater, all the regulations statewide require that we treat it on site and hold it on site, but it does have to have an area to pop off to. So I have to admit that I haven't done that research yet. But 80% of the work is incumbent upon us to do on site, and then there is a connection to a city utility at that point. Similar with sanitary. Again, we gather it all on site, and we do have to connect, and we've not done that research and not looked at the utility maps. What we have had to do on projects of this scale in St. Petersburg and Tampa. I think those are the only two places we've done a project large enough that this came in. We did on a couple of projects in my past. We've had to improve about up to a block away at our expense to, because there was not directly on site, a large enough sanitary line lateral. In this case, we have the advantage that we have 10th and Main Street and actually First Avenue. So, again, we haven't looked at the utility maps to see. I assume Mr. Allen's probably got it memorized, but I don't. So.
I agreed with everything that was said. I guess a couple quick points. One is, this is probably a $350 million project. So, I think like a water line or a sewer line connection, if it has to go a little further, isn't going to break the bank. I personally have built hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure, highway interchanges, wastewater treatment plants. Our company, we're building a building above the New York subway at Times Square, and we've had to build millions and millions of dollars of improvements to even start building the improvements. So we're not afraid of that. I don't think we know all the facts at this point, but I can't imagine with the ingredients that we have here, with the amount of the project capitalization, with impact fees and other things, we can't figure this out.
All right, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Allen.
And also, I think the other fact is, our company has been involved in development and construction. We've touched almost every street surrounding this property. The answer is there will be some off-site utility work that's going to be necessary for this. But as Jim described, in this size of project, we have an expectation in our budgetary side that we're going to have to look at some of those things. The other piece, when we talk about stormwater, the nice part that we have in this project is the majority of this property is already pervious surfaced, which means that we have a lot of flexibility with SwiftMud as we go through our permitting process, that we get credit or we get benefit for what was already here from a pervious, impervious, and I meant impervious when I said pervious, I apologize. So when we get to that point, those costs are not going to be as great as what we would see in a normal project, because we do get a number of credits because of what's already existing here on that front. Thank you.
Thank you.
What about the, sorry, I know we got stuck. I gave you guys two questions in one, but how do we feel about setbacks and not having the tree flanked by buildings?
Well, I think, one of the issues is when you look at our site plans and they're on 8.5 by 11 as you're looking on your screens, you have to understand that those sidewalks and those areas between curb to building are much larger than a 4-foot sidewalk, because our intent is to bring those retail components out into that area. And so our intent is to create that livable, walkable area you're describing. And I'll let Jim.
And similar to your concept about not having every building the same height, I don't think you want every plane on the street the same setback. I think we want to articulate that street facade, like you're saying, making room for cafes and different, access ways and that kind of thing. And so all that, I think to your point about having usable sidewalks and making sure that there's space in there for people to feel comfortable, all those things will need to be worked out as we work on the details. But I think the ground floor is one of the most important things to us, right? And so this project and the way that we approach the street, the way we create these spaces for pedestrians, for the restaurants, for all these things, that's going to define the success of this project, and we want to get it right. And we're not just going to build a wall, 4 feet from the back of curb and do that on 4 sides of this project. That would be, crazy. So rest assured, we will address that.
What we've looked at is on the east and west side of the project to have approximately 20-foot wide, a minimum of 20 foot between the building and then the street curb. And that does mean setting in the building a little bit off the property line, not hard on the property line because of the given setbacks. And that what that does is allows us for a 3-foot walk, what we call a 3-foot walk-off area adjacent to the parallel parking, then a generous 7-foot, 8-foot row of landscaped tree islands and beds, and then still gives us like a good 12-foot sidewalk area which is good urban sidewalks for these those scale of streets. On the riverside, on the north side, we actually have doubled that up again in that we've got the, and there you have the diagonal parking, again, the walk-off area, the landscaped tree islands, a public sidewalk, and then the colonnade or arcade that I mentioned. So there's another 12-foot under the building's arcade that doubles the effective sidewalk. So even though that's on private property, that's going to be publicly accessible at all times. And that's because we're envisioning that being a very much a restaurant and food destination along the riverfront. So effectively we have over a 20-foot sidewalk plus another 10-foot for the walk-off and landscape area. So it's really about 30 foot to the first floor of the ground level retail spaces. But we do think it's important that the buildings have a good, strong, cohesive relationship with the sidewalks. Retail works best in that situation. And we do envision different types of retail on the 3 sides. more neighborhood-based on the east side, maybe more boutique-based on the west side, and as I already mentioned, the food and beverage on the north side.
All right, I'm going to go to Ms. Coachman. She had something to address.
I'm not sure if I remember. I was going to hold comments and questions until after the public had an opportunity to speak, but I will just chime in since everyone else has. It is extremely important that there's green space, and it's extremely important that the public, the citizens of Bradenton, not feel like they're alienated from this massive, expensive project. In terms of condominiums, I think I'm not a realtor, just kind of common sense in the way things are going. Condos, there's probably a market for condos here. I'm willing to bet you I might buy one. I'm tired of taking care of a house. But just we're thankful that the two of you are proposing things, and you still seem to be open. And that's important, which is one of the reasons why I want to hear from the people who are sitting out there. So I won't go any further.
I think let's go to the public comment, and I'm going to say something though just before we get to that. Appreciate obviously having two opportunities to listen and see how we can and go forward with the city. Obviously, from the standpoint of sitting up on this dais, with a little bit of a break in between, but over the last 10 years plus. I've been up here and we've talked about this site. And, when this site started basically coming together in the mid-'90s to the late '90s, and then it was built as what it is now, you had to wait to a point. And this is a point that I'm proud where city is right now, and this administration and this council and previous councils have done to move us forward to get to this point. And some of the things we're talking about that we may or may not all agree on as we go forward up here on this dais, as well in the audience and in the public, we are going to be able to work through some of those things. And hopefully all of us will get a little bit of what we want to be positive for the citizens of Bradenton, and look forward to what we can now say, this has been our home, this will be our home for a long time to come, and we're proud of it. Because one of the things that I've said all along is, I don't plan to be in this seat maybe as long as my two predecessors from the standpoint of enjoying life. But I do plan on being in this downtown for probably the rest of my life, or as long as I can afford, or as long as I can physically be able to do it. But I want to be able to walk and enjoy those public spaces that we talk about in the right way. We, though, have that public space that starts here a little bit to the west and goes 3 miles of a public space. And we've got to remember that is the public space that people want to walk on, and then walk to a entertainment type district with retail, with restaurants and everything. So it's important to kind of, we aren't hurrying things up. This has really been a 25 to 26 year process. But when this process started, it was very negative. Now we're at a place where it's very positive with opportunity. So I hope that everybody out there, and the reason I'm getting to that point is that when we go through public comment, and we're going to start it now, I've got a list of, looks like about 15 names. We're going to give everyone 2 minutes. You don't have to take your whole 2 minutes if you don't want. If you just want to say I'm against or I'm for, whatever you want to do. But this is a business meeting, and it's very important to remember that there's people on both sides and then somewhere in the middle sometimes. So we're not going to have cheering, clapping for one or the other, because it's disrespectful to both sides. So we'd appreciate that as you go through it, listen and give the respect to that person talking. When their 2 minutes is up, the bell will ring, and I'll kind of I'm going to give like 3 people as you come up, so be ready for when it's your turn, but we'll keep going through. So at this time, we're going to start, and the first on the list is Donna Mathias. And please come up, state your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes. And the next is Cork Miller, and then Sharon Hillstrom.
I'm going to stop signing up first. Hi, I'm Donna Mathias, 1600 First Avenue West, Bradenton. It's good to see y'all again. I am disappointed that the council is still pursuing selling this property. The property we are on is for public use and enjoyment, called Talent Park. You will not be getting enough money from the sale of the property to sufficiently pay for new city hall or police department. This building is large enough to house City Hall and then provide a unique opportunity for Bradenton to really put itself on the map. Take another look at what Kennedy Smith recommended with the municipal auditorium. Provide a music venue, entertainment venue with the municipal auditorium. After visiting the villages recently, it would be a great place to provide a city center that could provide a market that can house produce, gifts, meat, market, etc. on the Main Street first floor side of the current building. Make this somewhere where people will want to come, not stay away because it is already too busy and there is no public area to enjoy. There was at one point a recommendation to put a pavilion in the parking area to expand the public market, which was a huge success this past year in that it surpassed Sarasota. I spoke to my financial manager today, who said, beware of building buildings with housing on the upper floors and retail on the lower floors. When the retail space is not rented, who's going to pay the price? The people renting the apartments or owning the condos. Make Bradenton unique and special as it should be, not another cookie-cutter waterfront. I realize you may be weary of this, and you have put much of your time and energy into this prospect. Remember, just because there is an offer to sell doesn't mean you have to take that offer. There is no shame in admitting, after much thought and research, that selling this property is not the right choice and is not the best interest of all of the Bradenton residents. And by the way, I can't say
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Cork Miller, Sharon Hillstrom, and Shelley Olson.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Cork Miller, 424 Old Main Street. I want to say that I'm so glad to see this happen. My family and I have been in business downtown for 15 years. We have seen it when there was only 3 businesses in the evening open up. We've moved across the street, and ever since we've been here, it's grown and grown and grown. We are looking so forward to the next phase of our growth downtown. Having residents downtown, another hotel downtown, is only going to benefit everybody that's on Main Street as we see it right now. And we just look forward to it. And we thank you for considering all this. And my vote is, let's go.
Thank you. All right, we have Sharon Hillstrom, Shelley Olson, and then it looks like Dillip Kirkendale. Okay. Kondapudi. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Hillstrom, President and CEO of the Bradenton Area Economic Development Corporation. I'm here speaking on behalf of our 51 board members, a diversified group of business leaders across our region. First, I would like to say I'm complimenting all of you on your leadership to get to this point. I know it hasn't been easy, but we're really proud of you. The decision you make today will serve as a catalyst to ensure the future revitalization of downtown Bradenton. Why does that matter? Research shows that a healthy and vibrant downtown boosts the economic health and the quality of life in the entire community. A revitalized downtown retains and creates jobs, which also means a stronger tax base. Long-term revitalization establishes businesses that use public services and provide tax revenues for the community. This lessens the burden on local government and surrounding residential neighborhoods. And finally, a healthy downtown is a symbol of community pride and history. You, as city leaders, are charged with the responsibility to set the course for the future of the city of Bradenton for generations to come. The Bradenton Area Economic Development Corporation, the lead organization for economic development for all of Manatee County, lends its full support to you as you move forward with this decision that will be the first important step of many to allow the city of Bradenton to finally realize its true potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Olson, Dilip Kundapudi, and Bill Sanders. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Shelley Olson, 1400 First Avenue West in Bradenton. In other words, I am your neighbor on the Riverwalk. So I speak from experience with the Riverwalk. Excellent architecture is site-specific. That is irrespective of what kind of architecture it is, which leads us to the question, what is the essence of the Riverwalk? I walk the Riverwalk every day, as do so many of us. We love nature. We love green space. So how does this impact architecture? Any architecture there, whether it be a reimagination of the current structure or rebuilding of something new, and this would include any kind of renovation along the Riverwalk, should take into account the beautiful nature which inspires and uplifts us all. So what is the nature? It is the birds, it is the flowers, it is the open space. Another reason why we all walk on the Riverwalk is because of our health. We become healthy. As an obese nation, I can tell you since I've come here 3 years ago, I've personally lost 10 pounds, much of it on the Riverwalk, and become a poet again. So how can any building, whether the one that's there now in a reimagined way or a new one, serve our needs? I'm going to take an illustration from Stromstad, Sweden, which is very much like ours. On the fjords between Sweden and Norway, a big hotel was built. How did they make the public feel welcome? Well, first of all, native plants all around. Native plants, meaning bird friendly. Number two, wonderful exercise facilities and open to locals. That is, locals only. So we as locals love to go in there and use the most magnificent pool, which overlooks the fjords.
Thank you. Moving on.
We can do this.
Dilip Kundapudi, Bill Sanders, and then Jackie Dzelski.
My name is Dilip Kundapudi, and I live in 1400 First Avenue, your neighbor. I've been to several community meetings, and in every community meeting, the council members said, we have not made up our mind to sell the property. And yet, what I see is only presentations for selling the property. My question is there any possibility that we will see a presentation like this for not selling the property and keeping it a public facility and getting funding from federal or other sources to develop it as a public facility with many restaurants and not having condominium that will add about 300 to 500 cars to this area and, of course, Manatee Avenue? That's my question. Is there any possibility that we will see another presentation for not selling the property? And between the two, you choose. Right now, you only have one choice, to sell the property. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Bill Sanders, Jackie Dzelski, and then Richard Capps.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bill Sanders, 2502 Riverside Drive. I think we do have the cart in front of the horse here. We don't know how we're going to pay for this. It's estimate that I've had from several people that to replace this city hall and police station will cost somewhere between $50 and $60 million. And if we're only getting 10 or 15 million for it, guess where the rest of it comes from? It comes from the taxpayers. Now, we've just been sued for millions of dollars for poor infrastructure. So we've kicked that can down the road for 20 to 30 years and 3 mayors now. So we've now committed to borrow $50 million to pay for that. And we've already committed another $8 to $10 million out of the ARPA federal funds to pay for that. The public hasn't been told how they're going to pay for their lines that connect to the city sewers, and we haven't offered any subsidies for it. So I've looked at all the things that you proposed, Mr. Mayor, and it's well over $100 million, maybe $150 million. And I just witnessed a fire station go from $4 million to $10 million. And I see that we're giving away property for less than full value or less than what the taxpayers will have to replace it with. And I don't feel that that's what the taxpayers want, irregardless of whether this project is good or not. That's beside the point. If these two gentlemen back here would love to pay for us to build a new city hall, a new police station, a new fire station, maybe we should do it. But we're way off, and the figures you give, you can't trust that they're true. And I represent the taxpayers, and I'm looking for their benefit. And yes, Mr. Mayor, if you push this through, you will be a one-term mayor.
Thank you. Jackie Dzelski, Richard Capps, and Max Brando.
Thank you, council members, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Perry as well, and staff. My name is Jackie Dzelski. I'm the president and CEO at the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, representing currently more than 2,200 businesses, nonprofits, and agencies as the largest chamber of commerce in the Tampa Bay region. On behalf of our board of directors, we've shared a letter with you in support of the city moving forward with the potential redevelopment of this site, and I'll add a few comments in addition to the letter that you've received via email. Many of you know that many groups within the chamber have had careful consideration of this opportunity for the city of Bradenton, including our downtown redevelopment committee. We've also encouraged our members to attend your public meetings as well as participate in your online survey. The Manatee Chamber has long supported development and redevelopment of the downtown areas and commercial hubs within Manatee County and our cities. We believe that the city of Bradenton has a unique opportunity with the redevelopment of the current City Hall, auditorium, and police department site in a way that will enhance not just the city's downtown, but our entire region. We are encouraged that you're focusing on mixed-use opportunities that can add to the residential and commercial profile of the urban core and can serve as an important catalyst for additional investment. Tonight, we've heard from interested developers about opportunities for you to look at combinations of everything from condominiums to apartments to hotels to group meeting space to public and professional space and the all-important public space as well. We also believe that redevelopment would allow the city administration and the Bradenton Police Department to plan new spaces for operations in ways that serve residents, businesses, visitors, and your employees more efficiently and effectively. We welcome your consideration of what's before you and encourage you to take the city of Bradenton and its downtown core to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Richard Capps, Max Brando, and Stephen Ayers.
Good evening. My name is Richard Capps. I live at 3730 Summerwind Circle. I am a resident of the city of Bradenton and of Manatee County for over 40 years. It's nice to see so many familiar faces up here. It makes me feel a little more comfortable for my first time sharing before the council. It's also nice to see that we have a mayor and a council with enough forethought to realize we can develop our urban core without forfeiting our character as Florida's friendly city. One of the things that I would like to suggest is that there will be, from this development, additional revenue for the city. That revenue can be used to benefit residents all over the city of Bradenton. For programs like the Police Athletic League, for example, that takes young men and encourages them to develop their athletic skills and to develop a character that will help them become productive citizens in our community. Organizations like a nonprofit called Avenue 941, which is currently working with the school board here in Manatee County, providing educational assistance after school to students who may not receive that in their home environment. And an organization here in town called Sozo Missions It's an organization that ministers to underserved communities in East Bradenton. I realize that the cost of the construction is going to be significant, and I appreciate men like you gentlemen who are willing to take the chance to work with us here in Bradenton. I really believe this is a great concept for our community and should be approved.
Thank you. Max Brando, Stephen Ayers, and Barbara Elliott.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Max Brando, representing the Realtor Association of Sarasota and Manatee. We are a 9,000 member trade association in our two-county region. We support the sale and disposition of City Hall. As others have mentioned tonight, we believe this decision presents an opportunity to bring energy, spur economic growth downtown, and provide even more jobs downtown as well. And I think the projects we saw earlier are just what downtown needs. And the possibilities are endless, in terms of what's to come. The potential for Bradenton, is pretty exciting. And I think I want to thank all of the council members and the mayor and the staff for taking on an endeavor like this and just being bold about the future of downtown and what you guys envision. So we support the sale and disposition, and just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Ayers, Barbara Elliott, and Linda Wright.
Hi, Stephen Arders, also a realtor, and just wanted to share some quick things with you. In looking at the sales, when we talked about what is even available in this area, there have been 17 properties on the waterfront from the Presbyterian Home all the way to First Street in the last 6 months. And of those, 10 have been sold. There's 7 or 1 pending and 6 that are available. So that's not very much. In the same geographic area down in Sarasota, that would be about 112, of which 60% are already pending or sold in that same time frame. I can tell you I lose people down to Sarasota or up into St. Pete because they look at the Riverwalk and they say it's great, but I don't have somewhere to go other than that in terms of restaurants and the like. There's a little less that's tied in. I really do like the idea of anyone who works on this particular property doing a little bit perhaps further enhancement in the Riverwalk to try to help tie that in to make that property just easy access, across the way between the two. Because I think that, from what, again, anecdotally from a number of clients, people eventually say, downtown St. Pete seems like more of that vibe, or downtown Sarasota. And because we're geographically detached from the beaches per se, a little bit further than our neighbor to the south, then having that Riverwalk area and having some better condos or more condos, I think would really tie in that area. So I just, again, the last 2 people who have spoken have been along that same line, and just want to throw my 2 cents in there with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Elliott, Linda Wright, I believe it's William Bruson. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Barbara Elliott, Stone Soup, Manatee, Bradenton, Florida. I understood on the agenda we'd have 3 minutes to speak. That's what it says. It's 2023. The city of Bradenton has less than 60 acres of neighborhood parkland. In fact, they only have 1 more acre than in 1997. I have a City of Bradenton records request that verifies this statement. The comp plan recreational element, Objective 3, Policy 1 requires 1 acre of neighborhood park per 500 residents within a half mile of resident dwellings. According to this policy, the City of Bradenton should have 120 acres of neighborhood parkland, and we're nowhere close to that. The land we are presently on and considering selling is Talent Park, as noted on page 135 of the comprehensive plan. It is designated as a park and cultural center on that map and includes City Hall, Bradenton Police Department, Municipal Auditorium, Municipal Pier, South Florida Museum, and Bishop Planetarium. Hoag Talent was a Park Recs director, city councilman. He engineered a plan with the state to add 55 acres of dredged land from the river for 75% parkland and 25% development. The city of Bradenton perverted the use of the land to a 75% development and 25% recreational. That's why we have a sidewalk along a seawall for a park instead of the park acreage we should have. Glamorize Riverwalk all you want. The truth is you stole parkland and gave it to developers. Every citizen has paid for Riverwalk instead of the developer who built it all, including housing and this building, which has fallen apart in 20 years. In policy 1.6, the city will not divert existing park space to other non-park recreational uses, except in cases of overriding public interest. How is a luxury high-rise residential building an overriding public interest?
Thank you, ma'am.
Developers,
We have
you need
Linda
to think
Wright,
about this.
William Broussard,
Return
and
Pallet
Lori
Park to the people.
Diamant. So Linda Wright.
This was timed to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Linda Wright. I live at 1650 First Avenue West at River Oaks Condominiums. It's rather obvious that this project is going to go ahead. So my 2 minutes is going to be a request that you don't undersell. You are not coming up with a third of the value of the properties you're parting with. You are not, in my opinion, going to be able to come close to replacing what you're giving away. I think that should be seriously considered. I also feel that you should actually take some time, work with FDOT, work with what the ground preparation is necessary to accommodate what we're dealing with now, let alone what we are providing these developers to bring in and what that impact's going to be. It's going to be significant. I don't feel that enough time is being allocated to preparing the infrastructure, but also the plans. I don't feel that there's a reason to rush it. Let's do it right. So perhaps you set meetings and preparation and make sure everything's all set before you start. Because once the developers own it, you are not going to be in a position to have much to say, nor will the residents. Right now, the traffic's terrible. We do have sewer and infrastructure and water issues. All these things I think need to be taken into consideration. I do feel that you can buy a home on the river for $10 million, and yet we're going to part with all of this.
Thank you, ma'am. We have William Broussard and Lori Diamant. Is William still here? Is Lori here? Okay. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Lori Diamond, 306 39th Street, Bradenton. And I wanted to just speak out and say that I believe that this is an amazing opportunity for our city and this beautiful prime real estate. And I feel that this is, in a way, giving it back to the people. If this is a mixed use area, it will bring life and energy into town that isn't here. Right now, we don't go to this building. But if there's restaurants and shops, then that will bring the community down to the area and bring life. The look and the feel of it will be very important also. When you come across the bridge, this is going to be welcome to Bradenton. So this will be an iconic area, and the look and feel should be new. Shouldn't, I understand we're not Sarasota, we're not Miami, so the ultra modern is probably not the best idea, but something that is different can set the tone for all the future building that will probably follow behind it is important. Sticking with the 80s look is kind of in the 80s. So I feel that the architecture is an important part of this, but I do feel that this is well overdue. I'm a longtime resident, on and off all my life, and we want Bradenton to be a place that you go to, not a place you go through. So I think that this would be a very good energy-bringing project. So I fully support it. Thanks.
Thank you. I have no other names on the list. So is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, come forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carl Callahan. I live at 114 25th Street West. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but there did appear to be a couple questions about how much money and how are you going to pay for things. So I've done a little research on this, since I do have some background that would lead to that. This project would be within the CRA, and if you assume a $300 million project, which has been brought about today, talked about, it is anticipated that over the 10 years, and I'm going from 2027 to the end of the CRA period for 10 years, it would bring in approximately $36,500,000. If you assume a 3% increase in value over that time, it increases to $42 million through the end of the CRA. After that period, approximately $2,350,000 forever. That does not include the $14 million you're being paid for it. So that's just a bit of a high-level area as the amount of money that can be there to pay for your new city hall, that can be there to help pay for your new police department, and I think is going to be there in perpetuity, because that $2,300,000 will not have a CRA attachment to it, and it can be spent however you want to spend it throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we close citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll close citizen comment. And I just want to say thank you to everyone and the decorum in the audience. I would like to thank, because that hasn't always been the case. And we're really trying to make this a positive environment for everyone. And it's very important to me to continue that way and to give the citizens opportunity. I know I'm sitting there staring at it, and I know some of you saw it. And as we went through, on the back wall, we put up where and how many meetings we had and with who we presented to, whether it was citizen or whether it was civic groups or whatever, and that was just a touching of it. But this has been very extensive from the public standpoint, the input standpoint, the computers, the social media standpoint, and everything. So, you know, some people criticize because it's so fast. It hasn't been that fast from the standpoint of opportunity to be engaged and involved. And the most important part is that we have had the citizens involved. We have had opportunity. And, you know, we've gone out. We could have done this meeting at 8:30 this morning as part of our other meeting. It was important to me as the mayor and sets the agendas that we did this after hours, because we wanted the engagement. We've begged for the engagement. We've went out and done it, and that's important. You know, yes, some of us may have different opinions on exactly how it was done or how it needs to be done, but it's important that we've done that. And again, we are here to listen. We've listened. We've got opportunity now. And basically, what I want to probably do now is, this would be the motion that we would need to do at this point. This is not motioning to sell City Hall yet. This is the motion to rank the developers and then have the council rank it and then move forward with the negotiations and the rankings and go forward. So the motion is to rank City Hall developer proposals in numerical order. And what we did numerically was just put just how they presented at the time, alphabetically. 1 would be L&L, 2 would be Red Apple, and 3 would be Silver Hills. So Tamara's got the cards, and we figured we'd do it. Obviously, it's still public record, but it was just easier to give out to each council person. And, I mean, we don't have to do that right this moment if you want to discuss something first, but I think we need to do that as we go forward. But so this is what the cards look like, and obviously the chair will entertain a motion, and if we get a second, then we'll have further discussion on this motion.
Mayor, before we do
Yes.
that, if I could just address council
Yes,
real
please.
quickly. The cards were prepared by the city clerk, basically, to rank the proposals. As the mayor pointed out, the motion's straightforward. It's to rank the City Hall development proposals in numerical order. And so under number 1, it would be the name of the proposal. If it would be Silver Hills that you liked as your number 1 preference, you'd put on the number 1 slot, Silver Hills. If it was Red Apple number 2, you'd put Red Apple in the second slot, or vice versa, basically. I think you can see that on the.
So you don't put a number in the year
No.
ranking?
No.
On this right here, because of the way it's presented, what we will do is we will put a number, I'm sorry, on the ranking itself next to the proposal itself.
So whatever proposal you think is number 1 for you,
Right.
you put it next to that number, number 2, number 3.
Okay.
But let's first, we need to get a motion to that effect, so then we can have further discussion. So is there a motion to rank City Hall development proposals in numerical order?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now, is there further discussion?
I think that, I mean, I just have to say that I wish this was a workshop. I don't feel comfortable yet. I feel like we're heading in the right direction. They brought great information. I have many questions, but to me, this is a continuation of a conversation. I still even have more questions. And the presentations, I think, have been arguably so well thought out that I find ranking to be very difficult. I mean, what I have heard, in addition to some great additional information, is both, I mean, in the both that are present, stressing that they are willing to meet or beat what the other one has to say, and I feel that that level of competition only benefits us. So I would propose, my preference would be that we not rank and that we direct staff on specific items that we think are important for continued negotiation and see where the two, at some point, there's going to be a breaking point, and one is going to say, I can't meet that demand, but why not try to get the most that we possibly could?
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor,
That's
so.
my- yes,
So
that's
we
my-
got your
that's my-
comments and thoughts, right. Thank you. Is there any other comments?
Well, the only comment I would have is that, I mean, you're looking at their proposals as, you've got to look at it all in totality. And I think, yes, we're going to go and say, that, okay, this is what we want. They'll negotiate it. If they can't, then they go to the second person. So I don't feel like I'm ready to make my ranking.
All right, well, we have a motion and a second. Any, once the last chance, further discussion?
I just want to
Yes,
say
ma'am.
that, oh my gosh, this is very difficult. Wow, very difficult. Both have brought something to us, and there seems to be passion behind it, and they're also willing to listen. This is extremely tough. That's all I wanted to
All right,
say.
and again, I agree with all comments here, but if you want to say that's what you get paid the big bucks for when you get elected.
Big bucks. I must be missing
Sometimes
something.
you have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, that's what we're elected to do sometimes, and it's not as easy. And yes, ma'am, we have our conflict counsel here.
Yes, so just for clarification, kind of maybe to put some Councilwoman Moore at ease, the motion on the floor is to rank them for the, city administrator to be able to have the ability to negotiate in that ranking order. So to your point, and to solidify Councilwoman Coker's point, that if whomever you think has the best project at this point, you would rank as number one, and then Mr. Perry would go ahead and negotiate with them. If there are things in that negotiation that Mr. Perry feels need additional council input, it can certainly come back to council in another work session to give further direction. It just allows the process to move forward with the best information that you have here. So I know it is a difficult decision. I'm really glad I don't have to make it. But hopefully it makes you feel a little bit more at ease that whomever you rank first as a council, when Mr. Perry goes to negotiate with them, if the negotiations are static, or if there's a stalemate, or if they fall apart, you have a secondary option. But it is important in this process to kind of keep it moving forward. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
May I ask a question of confidence? I'm sorry, did I interrupt? Do I have to use numbers 1, 2, and 3?
I guess I would need some clarification. What other numbers would you use? I'm sorry. I don't mean that to say to be flippant. It's just, are you saying that you have a tie between two? I mean, okay. So you would have to rank them 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kramer.
Mr. Perry, maybe you can answer, because I'm sure Mr. Perry's the chief negotiator in this, or is it putting us at a disadvantage to not have two competitors continue the bidding process? And I mean, are we settling at the prices they're offering? And I mean, where are we at with that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Kramer, I think that's a little bit about what Attorney Erica was talking about. If we rank them 1, 2, and 3, if it was to reach, just like when they did the city garage, you rank the number 1. We begin going down the negotiation road of a lot of the issues that have surfaced as being important. You've also heard from the developers and how important it is for them to get direction from the city on the specifics and the like. If there is an impasse or otherwise, there's a situation that leads to number 1 not going in a direction that looks like it is within a master development agreement, and that it is that it's consistent with what the council has been asking about, what was proposed in the initial offering of price, terms, and things like that. We would obviously notify council and begin to negotiate with number 2. There's no reason why we can't negotiate with number 2. This is a ranking, what the first preference is of council, what the second, and what the third is, under the exception to the Sunshine Law that allows negotiation strategies. We are permitted to negotiate with responders just as we would in a typical competitive RFP. And I'd probably ask Erica to opine a little bit further on that, if you could.
I mean, to your point, do you lose a competitive advantage because you're now solidifying, or you're just now singling it to 1, then 2, then 3? To this point, you still have a competitive advantage, because if you are not getting what you want out of the first one, there is the threat, quote unquote, to move to the second one. So whoever is in that first position, while they have the benefit of having the first step in negotiations, there is the ability for the city to say, these negotiations are falling apart. We are no longer going to negotiate with you. We're moving on to number 2. That tends to have a little bit, more of a sticking point, so that you can strategically negotiate with option number 1 without necessarily ever having to go to option number 2. There's no safe space for the first position. It is just which project, which proposal you think is the best for the city to move forward with, and for a lack of a better term, to waste less time with. I still think that there is a strategic advantage in the competitive negotiation process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and we will, no further discussion. We'll start the vote in Ward 5.
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4?
No, I don't
Okay.
want to do it.
It's approved 4-1, so at this time, I guess, rank them and pass it down to the city clerk, or she'll come and get them, so. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could get the votes, and then,
If we could take maybe a quick 5-minute break.
yeah, we'll take
allow the clerk to
we'll take a
tally.
5-minute recess and be back.
Is she done? Yep.
All right, we'll call the meeting off recess. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone, obviously, for being here. And we've had some, vigorous debate. We've had quite a bit before this, so it wasn't always today. But we, again, appreciate the demeanor of this council and the way that we will go through things and continue to go through things. And we appreciate you as always. And what we'll do now is just have Mrs. Melton, Madam Clerk, if you'll read the results.
Of course. Ranked number 1, L&L Development Group, 4 number 1 votes and 1 number 2 vote. The number 2 ranked was Red Apple Real Estate with 4 number 2 votes and 1 number 1 vote. Silver Hills Development, 5 number 3 votes.
Okay, thank you. So obviously, that shows that L&L Development would be in the process of working with Mr. Perry and his team to start through the negotiations with Silver Hills as Red Apple as the backup, and then Silver Hills as the third, so.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, Mr. Perry, is there anything else, or Ms. Attorney, is there anything else we need to do? Yeah.
There has been a motion to allow me to negotiate previously.
Yes.
But I think I'd ask for that motion again.
Just for clarity of record.
Okay. All right, the chair will entertain the motion to continue forward with the motion we had previously about Mr. Perry.
To negotiate with the
L&L.
proposers in the
With
rank,
L&L
in
with the
the
rankings.
ranking as proposed.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Ms. Coker, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Barnaby? All right, any further discussion?
I would
Or-
respectfully request, because now, now we're getting into this in earnest. I have some other ideas and thoughts that I will share with you, Mr. Perry. I wanted to get to this point to see, how it kind of shook out. And I have some other ideas and thoughts that I will be discussing with you. And I'm certain that if other council members have that as well, that you will encourage them to come and speak with you.
Right.
I would absolutely invite them to speak with me and would be hopeful that they would.
Thank you.
Count me in.
Me too.
Any other, okay, everybody's.
All right.
And there, I think I'm going to be working with Ms. Arguella and our team overall in these negotiations. I hope to have a master development agreement, at least in the framework of it, done within 30 to 60 days, I'd say, as far as the timeline goes.
I have a question then. The other cart is where we go. I mean, are we going to do are we going to be discussing that, coming up with decisions on that, where we're going?
Oh, you mean moving?
Yeah, the new city hall.
Yes, we'll be taking that as a separate matter, uncoupled from this particular issue. I don't think it was advisable to couple them together. It becomes too complex. The good news is, as you will remember, you authorized me to retain the services of H.J. Hyde do pre-construction services to look at the two viable sites that seem to be the most viable right now, which is the 14th Street and the 3rd Street location, basically. HJ High has done an assessment of that, looking at potential cost, suitability of the building, the site, other issues, programmatic use, and a whole host of other pre-construction evaluations. And I'm told that we will have that information hopefully within a week or so we can get back to that issue. But we really can't get to it until we complete that assessment.
So we're going to keep the process moving. It just, this had to be a step to get to the next step. And
For me, both parts of that is going to be very important in my decision-making.
Correct.
Just a quick.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you completely that we need to really start to focus on that as well, and I agree that it can be decoupled. If I could just strongly suggest, I think it's great. Obviously, we're all going to go and have meetings with Mr. Perry to reflect what we feel strongly should be points of negotiation. But if I could just again stress that it might be a good idea for us to consider having a workshop regarding those specific points, because I think that they're many and they're complicated, and I think all of us feel strongly about them. And so I think that that's an appropriate vehicle for us to just be able to have the conversation about giving staff some definitive direction in regards to points of negotiation. What I really would hate to see is staff spend a lot of time, the developers spend a lot of time just to present something that ultimately is not going to be acceptable.
And Mayor, if I could just address that, I'd suggest that very well may be something we want to do before we get to a final decision on approval of a proposed disposition agreement along with the master development agreement, particularly if there are sticking points within there. To update council, of course, at a workshop, no official action could be taken, but apprising council in an open forum may be advisable at a certain point. I think I have pretty good direction so far on what council's concerns are about the project, and I think I have enough to go back to both proposers if necessary. They've heard a lot of the same concerns and interest, and tried to negotiate some of those issues towards resolution, because ultimately they have to be reduced to a writing, and that writing is what we're bound to, and that writing is what they're bound to. And the issues regarding building height, densities, proportion of use, guarantees and insurance bonds and things like that, off-site infrastructure, public access, green space, will all be important factors in that master development agreement. And I look forward to working with potentially both proposers to try to develop that if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. All right, we have a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, to appoint Mr. Perry basically as the chief negotiator, as we have in the past. Starting the vote in Ward 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, hearing no other further business, we will be adjourned. Thank you.